all of which we expect to see the president address in just a few hours from now.
Indeed. It's a buckle up here on Capitol Hill with all this going on. Thank you. And Congressman Steny Hoyer, Democrat from the great state of Maryland, is a Democratic whip, the second highest ranking member in House Democratic leadership. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta. Glad to be with you.
Glad to have you here. Well, this is big news. If the president is saying time is right for an immigration bill, if both sides are willing to compromise, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I agree with him. The time is right. As a matter of fact, it's always the time to do the right thing. We had a bipartisan bill that passed the Senate with overwhelming vote. We were unable to get it on the House floor over the last 3 years. But if the president is saying he wants to talk, and he wants to talk in a positive way with respect to this, I'm sure we'll be open to that discussion. But I agree with Marco Rubio said that the devil's in the details, and he wants to know the details. I think all of us would want to do that as well, to see whether or not we're talking about real reform or not. But if we're talking about real reform, then I'm sure we'll be able to listen to him in a positive way and see if we can come to an agreement.
Are you surprised by this? I mean, this does run counter to what he has sort of, suggested to his base all along. He was critical of Senator Marco Rubio in the election with the Gang of Eight, and so he's very critical of that, critical of comprehensive immigration reform. Tonight, we're at least hearing something very different.
I'm not surprised, other than it's always surprising to hear Donald Trump say what he's for and against, because it changes on a relatively regular basis. It's sometimes based on fact and sometimes not. So we'll see what he says tomorrow. We'll see what he says tonight. But I was pleasantly surprised that at least he's talking about moving forward and talking about making sure that those who are working hard in this country may not have papers to be here, but have been here for some time, working hard, paying taxes, that they do not live under the fear of somebody knocking on their door in the middle of the night and taking them away from their families. So that's a positive step. But again, we need to see the details to see whether it's real.
All right, and you're part of the leadership, as we all know, of course, and Congresswoman Maxine Waters is not going to attend tonight because at least she's quoted as saying that she cannot contain her enthusiasm against Donald Trump. What do you think about a member of Congress essentially boycotting it?
I think Maxine feels very strongly. I think all of us feel very strongly, and she made a determination not to go to make a statement. I'm not pleased with what the president's done. He said he was going to be a jobs president. There's no jobs bill that's come from the administration. He said he was going to give everybody health care at a better cost than the ACA. We've not seen any such piece of legislation. And he said he's going to work on national security. In fact, what he did was issue a ban on Muslims coming in from 7 countries who have not, refugees from those countries, have not committed any terrorist act in this country. And in fact, what he's done is undermine the competence not only that those countries have, that we're going to need in the fight against ISIS, some of them, and not all of them, but we're going to certainly need the alliance with some of them, so that he has not made us more secure or more safe. And many, many experts say that it had a negative effect, not a positive effect. So Maxine Waters, I think, reflects the deep disappointment that Democrats have, and literally millions and millions of people around this country have, including those who voted for him, that he has not done to date the 3 major issues that he said he wanted to move on.
Well, I think tonight he may give you a little glimpse into what he intends to do on those. Let me turn to such a somber night, and this is, in Washington, such an important night in history always, every year when we have these big speeches. Do you think this would be a good time to talk about the name-calling? President Trump has insulted the Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, calling her incompetent. Most recently, Leader Pelosi has called Steve Bannon a white supremacist. I mean, and both sides have been slinging out the insults back and forth. Is this a good night to maybe wave the white flag and to stop this?
Well, it's a good night, but if he replicates his inaugural address, which, of course, essentially said everybody in Washington was incompetent, had done a terrible job, and the country was carnage, which is absolutely wrong. It depends upon what he does. You sort of, if you engender disrespect and anger. Don't be surprised that you receive disrespect and anger. And that, I think, is what Donald Trump did in the campaign. And he did it not just with Democrats. He savaged so many of his opponents and so many in the press. And calling the press the enemy of the people is absurd. In fact, the press is, with which I sometimes disagree, but they are absolutely essential to democracies acting in a positive and a productive way, and the citizens having information on which they can base decisions. So that we'll see what the president does. But I've never seen a candidate, and certainly never seen a president, talk to people, treat people in a disrespectful, horrific way that we've seen Donald Trump do throughout the course of this campaign.
Congressman, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Good to be with you.
And I hope you come back. Now, President Trump is expected to lay out his vision for the future, and we are learning